And I'll just go over the rules of participation quickly before we do introductions. And it's that all attendees will be muted during business portions of the meeting. That does not include board members. Muting restrictions will be lifted during public comment, and each public participant may address the board for 3 minutes. Those commenting must state their name and address, and any participants who engage in Zoom bombing or other disruptive trolling behaviors will be removed from the meeting. So I will start the introductions. I'm Ann Donahue, President of the Board of Trustees, and we need to include our city and state where we're physically located. I am in Marquette, Michigan.
I guess that's me alphabetically. This is
Yep.
Patrick Myron, Board of Trustees. I am currently in Marquette, Michigan.
Steve, you want to go ahead?
Okay, I didn't have the alphabet list in front of me. Steve Strunk, also in Marquette, Michigan.
Great. Andrea,
Andrea Ingmeyer, Library Director.
Bruce,
Bruce McDonald, Assistant Director, Marquette, Michigan.
Rick,
Rick Orr, Finance Director at Peter White Public Library.
Brett,
Brett Hubbard, Administrative Assistant for Peter White Public Library.
those are the official people, right? Who would, I mean, everyone's welcome to introduce themselves if they would like to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we all know each other though, so. Okay, next up is to approve the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
This is Patrick, so moved.
Steve, I'll second.
And are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
Again, this is Patrick. I see none.
I don't have any. Steve?
Nope.
Okay, all those in favor, I'll do a roll call vote actually. Patrick, how do you vote?
This is Patrick. I vote aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
This is Ann, I also vote aye. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
This is Patrick, so moved.
This is Steve, I'll second.
Any changes or corrections to the meetings from last
Let's
month?
see.
I didn't have any.
I didn't have any.
Okay, Patrick, how do you vote?
Aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
This is Ann, I also vote aye. I understand we're going to welcome John Povey for our special presentation tonight.
Right.
Hi, John.
Hey, John.
Hi there. I am John Povey. I'm the facilities manager here now. I was born and raised in Sault Ste. Marie. After high school, I joined the Air Force. I was stationed at K.I. Sawyer for a little under 11 years until the closing. And we moved back to the east end of the UP until it'll be 2 years in August. We moved back over here. And, I'm really enjoying it so far. It's a kind of an adventure place to try to get to know.
Yeah.
We've had annual sprinkler system test was done by Excel approximately 3 weeks ago. The alarm system was completed this morning from Superior Land Electric. Everything looks really good, they said. Nice shape. Been replacing sneeze guards. Some of the other ones were not so nice to look at, and try to make them look a little better. And they get more view with the new ones. They can see a lot better.
Oh, good.
Some of the things we got working is, of course, the irrigation system is a mess.
Mhm.
And I'll be getting with Andrea Thursday, and we got a little finagling to do on that one.
They're always such a challenge. I had an in-ground sprinkler system at a
Yeah.
house I used to own, and it was
especially in this part of the country, you know.
Yeah, in this climate and on that particular parcel of land, I would imagine it gets a little
Right.
tricky with elevation. And
Sure. I'm also we're gonna do the facelift on the garage out on 3rd Street. It's got a lot of rotten boards and trim. We're gonna fix all that and repaint it. And I'm
Oh,
also
good.
working on an irrigation system for the native garden behind there. It'll be a rain collection system.
Oh, nice.
It'll come off the roof, of course, and then into a holding tank.
Great.
very good.
The elevation's perfect, where it'll just be a free gravity flow with the
Mhm.
hose.
Mm-hmm. Nice, great
What a
idea.
great idea.
Other than hauling water that far, I think it's, I mean, it ain't gonna solve it totally, but it, you know, it's gonna take a lot off. Let's see. ACC just called about 15 minutes ago. They're gonna be doing our spring preventive maintenance starting tomorrow.
Oh, good.
And that's about what I got going right now. Anybody got any questions?
I'm wondering if you know the person I bought my house from.
Excuse me?
So I bought my house from a man who used to be at KI Sawyer's. Last name was Wallace, but I can't remember his first name now. But
There was
anyway, I
lots of
think,
people there.
I was
yeah.
gonna say there used to be they're not there anymore, John. I work out there. It's yeah.
Where you at out there?
I work at Organics, so it's across from the old radio tower.
Yep, my son's ex-girlfriend used to work there.
But yeah, anyway, I saw you out salting the sidewalks there at Peter White on my way out of town this morning. I thought, boy, I bet he's getting ready to put that bucket away in the air.
Well, funny thing was the rest of them melted off just as fast as that did, but you never know.
No, you do never know. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I think, we're happy to have you. It sounds like you're a bit of a jack of all trades, kind of a journeyman player, which a facility like that requires, really. So there's always going to be something, obviously.
Yeah. Not as scared
Yeah.
to jump into things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not a good idea, but I do.
Right. But yeah, no, it's, I think you seem happy, and I know that the staff seems to really like you, and you got things going. So we really appreciate it as a board, for sure.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Definitely. Yep. I mean, it's a big building, a lot of property, a lot to look after. And we're very happy to have you on board.
Thank
Hope
you.
you're settling in well.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, welcome, John.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, Sam says our plastic barriers are so much nicer now, thanks to John. That is good to know. And I know, I think when we first put them up, it was like, oh, this will just be for a couple of weeks or something.
Right.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
And it was hard to get plexiglass for a while too.
Yes.
Yeah. I understand all kinds of materials are hard to get and expensive right now.
Very.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, it took almost a month to do that because I could only get 3 or 4 at a time.
Uh-huh.
And then I
Boy.
just keep an eye on Menard's website, and then as soon as I'd see they were in, I'd go grab them.
Great.
Oh,
Well, thank you for getting that done.
You're welcome.
and Amy says they're much quieter now. They no longer squeak, which I would imagine the staff is thrilled about. So way to go, John.
All right.
Woohoo. Well, welcome. And thank you very much for letting us know. We appreciate you coming and
Yeah.
talking with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for your time,
No
John.
problem.
Really
Anytime.
appreciate it.
Next up, we have public comment. Does anybody have anything they want to share or ask us? Or relate a funny anecdote? Okay, I'll ask again in a while. Maybe you'll think of a joke. Next up, we have our Township Advisory Council report from Beth Lina. Hi, Beth.
Hey, Beth.
Nice to see you.
Well, it's nice to be back. It's been at least a year since I've been here at one of these meetings, and we've done all right in Scandia over the whole COVID shutdowns and everything. There's a lot of room for social distancing. And we only have one restaurant and it only closed once due to COVID exposure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, and I am on the planning commission out here. And so we've been meeting via Zoom too. And one of the things that I found encouraging is that there seems to be some interest in enforcing the blight ordinance that we have out here. Cause I lived in Marquette for years and you just kind of forget how much can happen on a property and that's allowed in a township. I think it's harder to deal with people because you know them and just the government's different. But I thought that was one of our more exciting things, that they're not going to spend a lot of money on it or work too hard, but they're trying.
Yeah.
And we have a few building things, but not much going on in Scandia either because of the prices and everything of equipment. So that's what I have to add. If anybody has any questions.
Doesn't sound like it, but we appreciate you joining us and thank you very much for being a liaison.
Yeah.
It's really,
Mm-hmm.
we value the partnerships that we have with the townships.
Yeah. And the township board meets tomorrow night, so I'll be there tomorrow night.
Great. Well, thank you
very
for
good.
doing
Well,
that.
look, your dance card's all full, Beth. Goodness gracious, how busy, right? You didn't think moving to the country you'd be so busy.
Who knew?
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time. It's good
You're
to
welcome.
see you again.
All right. Any other? Oh, Carol's joining us, it looks like. So we'll just wait a minute before we start on the bills. There she is. Hi, Carol. Well, I can see your forehead. There we go. Hi, Carol. Maybe she can't quite hear me yet. She'll get here.
Central time, there could be a lag.
Right.
I'm here, guys.
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
We did
Where-
get started without you, so
Okay.
That's fine. I'm in Minnesota. We just got a guilty verdict on George Floyd and grandkids just came in. So I
No,
may,
not,
If I-
okay, yeah.
if I
sorry.
can figure it out, I'm going to mute myself for most of the meeting so you don't get all the extra noise.
okay. So we're on the financial reports. Hi, Rick.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Rick.
So as I typically do, I'm going to start by seeing if there's any specific questions any of the board members have from the financial statements themselves or any of my notes that I need to address for you.
I'm just looking over them. I mean, I read it yesterday, but.
Rick, I had one question. It's
Sure,
probably a dumb
Steve.
question, but no sense. I was poring over. I was going to start adding numbers, but the fund, when we get increase in or decrease in fund value, there was dividends and there's adjustment for capital gains in each of the funds. Is it correct that does not get counted in the general revenue, right? Those are really separate.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding the question, Steve.
So for
So-
example, if there's if in last month there was a $9,000 or $5,000 increase in due to equity appreciation in one of the funds, not
Right.
the operational fund, but say I forget the name and I apologize, I don't have it in
Carol
front of me.
Paul or something like
Well,
that.
there's Carol Paul and General Fund.
Yeah.
So
Do those don't show, do those or don't those show up in the revenue tally for the quarter?
the answer is yes and no, Steve. For the general fund trust, that revenue, so the market gains and the market loss are reflected on the expense and revenue sheet under interest and dividend line.
Okay.
There is some interest and dividends that do occur but most of the change every month is tied to market gains and market losses. So
Only
on
in that,
on the Carol Paul, that is its own separate fund. So it is not tied to the general fund. So the changes are reflected only on the balance sheet. Yeah, so the balance sheet activity shows what the changes to the Carol Paul. So it's not impacting the revenue side, but it
okay,
is impacting the balance side.
right,
So
yeah,
when we
okay.
get market gains, then that number is reflected on the balance sheet as increasing, and when market losses occur, then it's actually decreasing. So each month it's actually reflected in that.
In the balance sheet, those are just in the that was just in the balance sheet. Okay, thank you.
So
Yeah.
and when we finally get together, we can go into more detail on that, Steve, so you have better understanding. So
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate it.
But that's a great lead in to one of the things in my comments that I wanted to just make sure that the board was understanding. And so what we have is our revenue number is a little bit behind where we were last year. But it's actually, I'm trying to find, okay. Let's see, let me find it. Okay, so we're actually under prior year revenue by 30,748 basically. But that's actually being very much, that number is kind of artificially low because of exactly what you were pointing out, Steve, or asking the question on, is the dividend and market gains that have occurred on the general fund trust. When you compare it to the prior fiscal year, we were actually at this point in time, we were a negative. We were like a negative 25,000 at this time, March of 2020. Now we're like $60,000 ahead. So the difference is actually a 96,167 swing. So that's the positive aspect of having that general fund trust in there. But the thing that I caution the board on is typically that's not money that we have available to spend for operational purposes. It's more at the discretion of the board to use in an appropriate way. So it's actually all in the general fund trust. So that's a little misleading. We're actually quite a little bit more behind on our revenue compared to last year. But on the other hand, our expenses are quite a lot behind where they were last year, or ahead of where they were actually spending less this year than last year. So that's why our numbers are really in a pretty good place at this point. So there's a couple things I'll be watching. I'll be watching our wages now. We're back up to full staff. And so I think our wages now are going to be pretty close to what we were budgeted. We have budgeted for each pay period. This last pay period, it was still about $500 less than what we budgeted. But I think with our final 2 new employees getting on board, we'll be pretty close to that going forward. So I'll be watching that number. And the other one is healthcare right now. We've had some, we have 2 components to our healthcare. We have our Blue Cross Blue Shield policy that is a set number each month that's determined at the start of the healthcare year, which is July. And we actually know that it's going to be down a little bit in the next fiscal year that starts in July for healthcare. But the other component is a self-insurance side, and that's based on actual costs. And so right now we've been having some extra costs kind of above and beyond what is what is normal. So I'll be watching those to see if that trend continues or whether it comes down, as to whether that number needs to be adjusted here still this fiscal year. So those are a couple of things that I wanted to bring to your attention. Yeah, I guess the other one is on the electrical use side. ACC is in the process of getting the project going to basically have our metering and our chiller tied in so that our peak demand will not be able to be exceeded. The system will actually be monitoring it, and as it gets close to it, it'll start to shed some of our load. And the other thing they're going to do is we have an operational, or let's see, we have a, try and find, let's see. Yeah, it's an, okay, I don't think I printed that page, but anyways, what it is it's a peak operational. So it's a startup program that they're tweaking so that we can use that for before we go operational in the morning to actually cool the building down. So it's kind of a neat little feature that we're going to be taking advantage of. And the system actually makes an educated guess of how much in advance of operation the building going operational it needs in time. It has a window of up to 4 hours to pre-cool the building. So we'll be using that to hopefully minimize the likelihood that we'll actually have to do any load shedding. But it's a pretty significant savings to incorporate this, because if we actually get into the highest peak demand charge, it's about an $8,000 annual increase to the library, which is just a little bit less than the total cost of doing this project. So the project has just over a 1-year payback period. So,
Right.
which is really, really, in my mind, a very good payback.
Very
So
good, yeah.
typically, anything under 3 years is considered pretty good. So anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to share with the board. If there's any other questions, we have Andrew here now.
So did Andrew join
yeah,
us?
welcome.
Thank you. Rick, I actually I just wondered, so this work with ACC is doing to, avoid having to shed our load and be more energy efficient.
Well, it could shed our load, actually. So what it is it's specialized metering on our power lines coming into the building that's then tied into the control. So then it can see when we're starting to approach 200 kW, which that's the key. If you exceed 200 kW twice per year, then you're locked into the peak demand, highest peak demand charge structure. Right now, we're in the middle one.
So I have a twofold question, and the first part is, were we not aware of this when we were doing the renovation?
We knew about the peak demand charge. What we didn't know at that point in time was exactly where we would end up with the current system.
Okay.
So we put in the new chiller. We did some other enhancements, and at that point, IDI said it's going to be really close.
Gotcha.
And so now last year we had one where we went over peak demand, and one other time during the summer when we got within we got to 196, I think it was.
Ooh, all right.
So we came really close last year, and actually the August one, so if we tripped over 200 again in June or July, we then would have done 2 within a 1-year period of time, and that would trigger
Gotcha.
it. So
Well, I totally agree that this is a healthy project. But I'm going to summarize and I'm going to ask my second poll question.
okay,
And that is, so what I'm understanding is that we needed to kind of get the track record of the improvements we made before we went on and did this additional improvement using that information.
right.
So how, as a board, how do we kind of forecast what to do to, going forward so that, we budget for these things? And the only reason I ask is because I remember a time in the past where, if an unexpected bill came up, it was frightening. And I know we're in a much better position because of all the work you've done and Andrea's done, and the library and all the staff of the library have done. But I just want to know, is there a way that we can forecast going forward these expenditures? Because this one came as a totally new thing to me. I think it's a great investment, but I didn't know that was out there. I didn't know that was coming, and I don't know, maybe other people knew, but I just want to try and make as much predictable so that we don't hit any. So when we do have those unexpected expenses, we're in an okay position to address them.
I would not classify this as an unexpected expense,
Okay.
Andrew, in that we've been investigating this for pretty much a year as a staff. Andrea and I have had a number of conversations, and it's actually in the budget. So you have a capital improvement line item that has $15,000 in it. So that's where this is going to be expensed against that line item. So we're actually not going to, I guess, impact the budget significantly.
Fantastic. Rick, I misunderstood then. I thought this was a new expense, and I hear it was all planned for. And we did forecast it. So thank you. I apologize if I made anybody uncomfortable.
That's okay, Andrew. It was a great question, and gives good clarity to the board.
And if I could just add in too, that's something when Rick and I are looking at the budget, we talk to the staff and say, what do you see coming up in the next year that we may need to plan budget wise for? And then as we're creating the budget, we're keeping those things in mind. So if there are items that are outside the scope of the budget, that's when we would really have to look at, well, do we use fund balance for this? Is this an expense that we would want to justify taking from the fund balance for? But unless there's really something that just hits us completely out of left field, we're trying to be about a year ahead on some of those projects so that we make sure we can cover as much as possible with the budget.
And Andrea, and Rick, I appreciate that this is, I have just dove into the weeds of the subject, and before I was kind of flying over the field as a board member, and so you guys are taking care of that, and I apologize. I thought this was a new expense. I hear you guys are on it. So great work. I think that's a great investment, and I'm grateful that you guys were, forward thinking and making that plan.
Yeah, and Andrew, I guess the other one while we're on this topic is in John's presentation, he talked about the sprinkler irrigation system being rebuilt. And so that is another one that's incorporated into our capital plan and was discussed as part of the budgeting process.
Thanks, Rick.
So now we're trying to move that project forward here in a little bit too.
I'm all set. Thanks.
Other questions or comments on the financial reports?
This is Patrick. I have none. Thank you, Rick.
Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the bills?
So moved.
This is Patrick. I will second.
Yeah, and I forgot to do that before we start talking about them, but you know,
Yeah.
Old habits
Old
die
habits,
die
right?
hard.
Yeah.
they do. I love them so very much. I'll do a roll call vote to pass approval of the bills. Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Carol, how do you vote?
Aye.
Patrick, how do you vote?
Aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
This is Ann. I also vote aye. Motion passes 5-0. All right, now we're on to policies. Woohoo! So the first, go ahead.
And I just wondered, because we did a discussion of these pretty in-depth, I think, last time,
Mhm.
would it be appropriate for a motion to bundle all the A through E together for discussion and then voting?
That's a good question.
Well, maybe the question to ask is if anybody has any issues on any of those, and if nobody does, then maybe we could do that.
Okay. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss
No.
about the first 5 that are up for approval? The first.
A through E. No, I know we spent a fair amount of time on board action item E and just reviewing that and offering up suggestions and stuff. And then there were quite a few questions on item A as well. But I think if that's all cleared up, I don't know, Andrea, are you comfortable with that strategy to tackle these first 5, or would you like opportunity to discuss individually?
I don't believe I need it if the board is comfortable.
I don't think Andrew was asking for a consent agenda where we don't even discuss it. He was saying, let's lump them all together.
Yeah.
Do we need to make a motion to have them considered all together? I will make a motion if need be.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, this is Carol. I would like to make a motion that 5 policies be considered together in one vote for approval. The 5 policies are number 5, the computer and internet access and use policy. 5.1, the internet for patron provided equipment policy. 1, the confidentiality of library records. 2, records retention policy. And 3, security camera policy.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
That was Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So are there questions or comments?
This is Steve. I guess I'd like Andrea has some comments, like prefacing some of these, like that first one.
Mhm.
And I guess I'd like to just hear if there's any more to say about that. Looking at the one where she talked about sending the policy to Ann Siernick, again, we just voted to combine these, we can discuss slightly. I mean, we didn't say
Absolutely.
consent agenda, we just lumped them together.
Right. Well, I mean, those comments really apply to all of them. So, I mean, Andrea and I talked about it over the phone because, she asked Ann Siernick to review it, but then Ann's reply was, well, do you want to just use ours? Well, the answer to this specific one is no, we don't want to just use yours.
Right.
Andrea, I don't know what you want to add to that.
Well, I guess I wanted to have a little bit of a conversation about this topic, because I do want to make sure that the board is comfortable with that.
Mhm.
I do think there are some policies that I would feel a lot more comfortable with getting a draft directly from Ann Siernick, or
Mhm.
paying for her legal advice and or policy.
Services, yeah.
And then there are some policies that I feel like, every library in the state of Michigan, every library in the country has a computer use policy, has a meeting room policy, has an XYZ policy. And I don't feel like it's money well spent to have each and every policy, one, reviewed by that level of legal capacity, or two, getting policies that are very boilerplate for each of them. Some of them I do. I really do. I feel like there are some policies that are really important for us to just make sure all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. And that's not to say that these aren't policies that we generate in-house are not thoroughly evaluated, but I do think there's less of a concern that there will be a major legal fallout as a result. And I think that's where the distinguishment comes from. My concern with using a boilerplate legal policy for everything is kind of twofold. Number one, there's cost involved. But number two, I think we need to consider readability and applicability of policies to our community. And sometimes what we get directly from an attorney is not necessarily going to fit in with our community and what our specific library does. So those are my thoughts, but I certainly wanted to get some guidance and feedback from the board before moving forward with that, because I don't want to discount or not follow a guideline that the board would like me to.
Right, and I'm in agreement here. As I said, Andrea and I discussed this already, and I also feel like, well, basically what Andrea said, there are policies where it does make a lot of sense to get directly from an attorney and ones that don't. And this is where Andrea's and Bruce's expertise, helps guide us as a board, like where that's appropriate and where it isn't. But I am curious to hear what the other board members think about this.
Yeah, well, this is Patrick, and I guess I would, not to sound, but yes, I would completely agree with what has been said. I think there are certainly some policies that might absolutely require the higher legal aspect for compliance or whatever, just to make sure that it is I don't think there's any sort of neglect in any of these that we've gone over. I would like them to be somewhat tapered to our institution where applicable, or actually where it would be really required to do that. As Andrea said, every library, not just in the state of Michigan, but probably every state in the union has, pretty standard policies for those first five as they've come up, and I'm sure they've been refined many times over the years. We had to look at our security camera policy because the pixel rate quadrupled, so you could actually identify people and things and actions rather than just blobs and shadows of. So yeah, that stuff is always going to happen, and when it does, or when we anticipate it, or when we're advised to, I think we should really look at it. But I personally am comfortable with items A through E. I think they're pretty standard. I think there's been individual thought put into it and quite a bit of time on the staff as far as a lot of input goes, because they're the ones that are navigating these. And they're the ones that this policy, along with the patrons, will universally help to protect. So.
Thank you.
This is Steve. I agree with the big general question, but definitely trust Andrea's using her discretion to say, you know, these policies are, we can develop in-house. These are boilerplate we can borrow from our regional friends, and these are ones we should definitely get from attorney. I'm comfortable with leaving that up to her discretion. I did, yeah, that's my general comment. I did one of these ones that's lumped in there. I'm reading it. It says there might be it might be best to table it until another policy is approved. So before we finish up, that MGT2 had a minor change, and there was a suggestion to perhaps table it till another policy is approved. So anyway, but the first question, I agree totally. Andrea's got my confidence in deciding what should be developed in-house, what should be purchased, and that kind of thing.
Thank you, Steve. I had forgotten about that. The records retention policy, I did make a change because the circulation policy that we're going to be talking about here next has a dollar figure threshold in it that was in conflict with this policy. So that one might be good to pull.
I would offer a motion to pull that one. And if Carol is comfortable with it, it could become a friendly amendment.
I'm not sure it works that way.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I mean, I think what we would do is like, we would not vote on, wait, actually, how does this work? Shoot, I don't have my little book with me.
I think there could be a friendly amendment to amend the motion to pull out that one, or you could just
Okay.
withdraw the motion and then become a
Make it
new
again.
motion. But the friendly amendment, I think, would work
A,
Oh,
B,
it
C,
would
and
work.
E.
Okay.
with the second agreeing. Yeah.
Andrew, do you want to make a friendly
Well,
amendment?
I second it. So yes, I would make a friendly amendment. I didn't know if Carol needed to, that we
Oh.
withhold, we run with Carol's motion, except for letter D, records retention policy.
Do I have a second?
Well,
Second,
that's Carol.
Yeah.
For a second.
Okay. So let's vote. Do we want to table D until,
But D
Next
isn't in
month.
the motion. There's a motion on the table for A, B, C, and E right now that we could proceed
Okay.
with. Or
that's what we'll do. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Steve.
Sure, you're welcome.
I'm discombobulated today.
Oh, no, we're good.
Okay. You're good, Pet. Okay.
No, I'm
So
not
we're-
good. We're
You're
good.
not.
I'm
All
not. No, I'm speaking for myself. Nah, not so much.
Okay. So I still, do Carol or Andrew have any comments about when to use an attorney and when not to, and how that relates to policies or policies A, B, C, or E?
this is Carol. I agree with everything that's been said, basically, and don't need to restate it.
Okay.
And this is Andrew. This is my last meeting, but I do agree.
Okay, good. Okay, are there other questions or comments about policies listed as A, B, C, and E under board action items on the agenda?
No,
Okay, are we ready to vote then?
yes.
All right, Andrew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Carol, how do you vote?
Aye.
Patrick, how do you vote?
Aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
This is Ann. I also vote aye. So that means policies MGT 5, MGT 5.1, MGT 1, and MGT 3 passed 5-0. Now, may I have a motion to table? Well, is it a motion to table something?
I
Please.
don't,
Or do we just say we're tabling
Steve,
it?
you might be the expert there, but I don't
Yeah.
think we need a motion to table that if the friendly amendment applies to, well, no, actually, we may.
It's not even
Sorry.
on the table yet. No one has proposed anything about that act.
There we go.
So if
Do
no
we-
one makes a motion, that just languishes in the agenda.
Okay, let's let it languish.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing, languishing.
I just read a great article about languishing today.
In the New York Times?
Yeah, it's not very upbeat, but it does,
It
It explains-
describes,
it explains a lot, right? Adam Grant?
does. Yep, I read the same one.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're moving on to things we're going to discuss in depth. Yay. The first reading of Circ 1 policy, library card policy.
Okay, so Amy is here with us also.
Hi, Amy.
But this is kind of the general changes that we made to this policy. Amy, do you want to just take over? I'd be happy to let you.
Thanks, Andrea. So, okay, the background for this is I was given a policy manual for circulation from 2017 that was about, 50 pages long. I don't know. It had a bunch of policies in it. It had procedures in it. It had forms in it. It had just about everything in the kitchen sink in it. So what I did was I condensed those into 4 basic policies, and those are presented today. So if you start with the library card policy, it really just lays out the ways to get a library card. The definitions are there. There's some general policies as far as who can borrow materials and that a library card can only be used by the patron. One major change would be to reduce the fee for replacement library cards from $3 to $2. I wanted to look at that being more accessible to people if they do lose or damage or someone has stolen their card. And I know Andrea had listed that it costs us approximately 69 cents per card to do that. And I actually found the paperwork today from our last order, and it's actually a lot less than that. It costs us about 36 cents per card. So I think we can
for the
lower that
replacement
fee.
cost, not for the,
Did
like
somebody
the-
go over to get Ashton?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
No, that's okay. That is just for the plastic cards.
Mhm.
It's not for time or anything like that.
Right.
But our system makes it very easy to replace a library card within the computer system. So I feel that we can reduce that fee and make that more accessible for people. Let's see, the other things that we changed would be the threshold for suspending borrowing privileges from $10 to $25, and then also upping the suspension, the unique collection services amount to $35. The $35, the $25 that we have right now for unique management services has been the same for at least 15 years, I believe, since we started working with Unique. And with that, inflation has occurred, and I believe we did the estimate cost with inflation, and it comes to be close to $35.
Okay.
Okay.
Amy, this is
go ahead,
Patrick. How often are their services required? Just in general, just like
I
once a
haven't,
week, 10 times a year?
I really don't know that. Andrea, do you know that?
I mean, is it
We have-
common?
Yes, we have
Okay.
patrons who go to Unique monthly. Bruce could probably give a better guess of the
Surprised I haven't
number.
been there. Okay.
But we certainly have accounts that get pulled monthly, on a monthly basis.
Right.
We get billed monthly. anyway. So I think actually the reports are run weekly and accounts are sent on a weekly basis, but we get billed on a monthly basis. And it's been so long since we've seen those bills. But it's, you know, it's anywhere from a handful to a large couple handfuls a month.
Okay. And do you see upping that threshold by $10 influencing that number at all? I mean, there's some people that are just on the cusp all the time. Would another $10 keep them out of collection, or would that just happen after 2 more weeks of?
Well, I really looked at it as the cost of at least one book.
Right.
So,
Yep.
you know, if you have more than one book that's due to be billed and you haven't settled your account, that's probably when you would go to unique.
Okay.
And, you know, I don't want to harm whatever,
Right.
to send somebody to collection for one item.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and as you've mentioned this, and I think we're all in agreement that, you know, eliminating any of these even supposed hurdles for patrons to be able to use the services is a good thing.
Right.
In great part, that's what all of these policy revisions are intentioned.
Absolutely are. The theme is inclusionary and an adjustment for April of 2021. You know.
Exactly. I think those were the major things on the library registration.
Amy?
Hey, this is Andrew. I just had so just a clarification question. I hear the logic of saying, hey, I don't want to send somebody to collections for one book. What would be, do we want to send somebody to collections for 2 books, or is there a number that standard practice or that folks feel comfortable with, you know? Because I guess I'm thinking, geez, I wouldn't want to send somebody to collection for 2 books, but that would be me. I don't know.
Well, if they have 2 books lost and they haven't reconciled the account, that's when they would go to collection, probably.
Gotcha.
I'm looking at average cost of books. You know, it ranges depending on what you've checked out. But I think $35 is pretty good because we don't want it to be too far away from where we had put the library accounts being barred.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
go ahead, Andrea.
When Amy and I were meeting with Unique for an unrelated meeting, we were asking some questions about changing some of these thresholds, and something that they talked to us about, which I don't know that Amy and I had really put together fully, was that you want those 2 numbers to be really pretty close together. You don't necessarily want to use the same number, because then as soon as somebody goes over that amount, they're both blocked and going to unique. So there's not a chance for them to get the notifications from the library and go through that process. So you want that to happen first, because we, of course, get most of our materials back with that method. So it's not until they've been delinquent for a pretty long time that they go to unique. So they get a lot of opportunity with us to make good on their account after they hit that $25 mark. And it's not until, you know, they actually hit a $35 mark that they would get triggered for unique. So you want to keep those numbers fairly close together so that you're not unintentionally sending people to unique, essentially.
Is that just a sort of a tangential question? Does that work pretty well? And does unique get the payment usually?
They do. Interestingly, what we were meeting with them about is they're changing their process, and they're going to start using email as opposed to letter-based communications. And we're not thrilled with that. So we do have a pretty long track record with unique as far as what the return on investment there is. So we have data, and as they go forward with this new plan for how they're going to, you know, contact patrons, we'll be able to compare that to this new
Fantastic.
process that they're using.
Mhm.
I think when Amy, Bruce, and I met about this, we're all pretty dubious that they're going to see a great return on investment from email. I don't know how the rest of your email accounts are, but my email fills up faster than I can keep track of. And I think most of our patrons are in that situation. So I see a lot of missed communication potential happening.
Well, and yeah, I
we'll
would say
see.
Unique is really relying on some sort of standardization amongst what browser you're using, maybe what firewall you have, and again, this is coming from a company that all our communication with our distributors comes into me and it says dangerous, it's just like, well, who the hell's gonna open this? I know where it came from. It came from right over there, and I'm still not touching it. So yeah, I wish them luck on that.
Yeah. We'll be keeping close tabs on it once
Yeah,
we
no, and it's
start
great
back up
that you've
with
got the legacy data that you can just say, hey, listen, this is obviously isn't working. You must have run these numbers and come to a similar conclusion.
Yeah.
This is Andrew. I would think that if they did go to the email route, we would alienate some patrons because all of a sudden they would be, I think, kind of walking into a trap where they weren't paying attention to their email. I would be one of those people who would be guilty of that. And whereas a snail mail, it's pretty
gets
clear
your
and it's
attention,
going to get my
yeah.
attention. And I would think patrons would see that and know, oh, I've got to deal with this.
Right, but I mean, we can't control how
No,
they run
absolutely
their
not.
business. So
No,
even
I'm sure they've debated this for years
Yeah.
and years, right? Email's nothing new. So
But Andrew, I'm glad you're saying that because I'm going to include in the letter that I'm writing to them that our board is not happy with this change either, if that's okay with you, because I do have
Absolutely.
a letter that I've been drafting to send to them with some of the concerns that we have about this change. Because I know that we're not alone. Other libraries that I've spoken with have had the same reaction. And I think part of why we've all had this reaction is we email our patrons all the time and see what kind of return we get from it.
Mhm.
It's just
Yeah.
everything is coming at everyone in email right now, and it's very hard to prioritize what's important.
And it's hard to be, hard to be as threatening in an email too.
Andrea, you have
you should
have
read
carte
some of the ones
blanche with
I get,
saying
Steve. Jeez.
that your board member is irate and dubious. And you can even go to terser
and
language if you
dubious.
feel it's justified.
And he's sending you a letter, not an email. He's writing you a letter.
Not email. That's right.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah.
So the question I have is actually about fines, and I'm fine with changing our late fees down to 10 cents a day. But one of your comments, Andrew, is that we're not 100% ready. We're not quite ready to be 100% fine free at this point. And I'm curious what the current barriers are.
Budget.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think if we can start with eliminating the DVD rental fees, we're kind of moving on to the next agenda item here, but they're connected.
Okay.
But this is contained more in the collection use policy than in
Did
the
I get a mixed
library
up?
card policy. It's okay. But I do think the DVD rental fees are the fees that I can see are they're really their time is coming to an end. People are streaming materials. We're not buying as many DVDs. We're always looking for new services streaming services we might want to offer. And I just feel like that line of revenue is going to dry up on its own in a pretty short period of time. And I'd rather have our circulation stats go up by allowing people to use that collection more freely. And the changing the late fees, I think at the same time that we're taking the DVD rental fees out is a pretty good hit to the budget. So I'm proposing that we kind of step this in where we're eliminating the DVD rental fees first, reducing the late fees, and seeing how that goes for a while.
Okay.
Sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
Other questions or comments about the library card policy? I think it's really well written. It's very clear and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, it was easy to, follow it and yeah, and I love streamlining things. So this makes me happy to hear that that you've tackled this.
I just, a quick question, is that moving towards, virtual library card where you give them a QR code, you put your phone up to a reader? I haven't seen it, but I'm just wondering if that's a direction people are going.
Right now, we don't have a way to have are you talking about like having your card on your phone?
That kind of a thing, yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah, we don't have anything within our system that allows for that.
Okay.
There are other ILSs that will allow for that. I came from a library that had that program. We actually had it within our app that we had for the library. So that is possible, but we need to work with SLC in order to make that happen if we were to do it. I don't know that Cersei Dynex allows for that, but I know Polaris does. And that's what I came from West Bend.
Yeah, and when there gets to be enough demand, or I'm sure our staff build it in when it needs to.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Is SLC still considering migrating to a new catalog? Or is
There's a
that-
committee. There's a
Okay.
committee that's been looking at it. I think when Sean left, that committee has kind of
Is it languishing?
it's languishing. Yes, it is. So hopefully when they have a new director over at SLC, they do have full tech staff now. So
Oh, that's good
once
news.
they have a new director over there, I'm hopeful that that committee will kick back up again. We have Cersei through, is it 2023? Bruce, does that sound right to you? I can't remember if it's
Might even be
2023 or
2024.
yeah,
Okay, so there's some time. I mean,
there's time.
It's
Yeah.
it's not crunch time.
Yeah, we started early.
Good.
Yep.
Good. Okay. I think we're still talking about the collection use policy.
So again, the big changes here are the DVD rental fees, the changing the late fees, and the 3-day grace period. Amy, do you want to talk about the 3-day grace period at all?
Sure. I brought up the idea of having a possible grace period to kind of help us go fine free. In the end, it allows patrons to have 3-day grace without incurring any fees, and it would help with the issue that we've had regarding quarantining materials as well. So that would be also instilled when we would start charging fines and late fees and starting unique again.
It
Yeah,
wasn't, yeah, I'm sorry, Patrick, I'm gonna step on people again. It wasn't all that long ago that there was a 3-day grace period at Peter White. And I know I really enjoyed it. It was great. You get the little poke and be like, hey, 3 days before. Yeah, often that's really all I needed to start digging. And I don't think, I was on the I think I might have been on the board then. There wasn't really a lot of blowback necessarily that I recall. Nothing significant that stands out. After Bruce, you recall because you were right there. But I don't remember mean, besides myself having to shape up, I don't remember there being like a public outcry over it or anything.
I think it was when we switched to Cersei that we had to do that because it was like a global setting, which meant that all the libraries would have to adopt that policy.
Right, okay.
Now we have the ability to do it on a library by
Flexible.
library basis.
And it would also help with, especially in the winter and we have snow days and, you know, weather incidents and things like that. I think it would be really helpful for people to have that little bit of grace just in case those things happen.
Yeah, I love the idea of a grace period. I'm all for it.
Can you please turn that off? Can you please turn that off?
Other questions or comments on the collection use policy?
Oh my.
I guess the one other thing I did change too is that the limits for checking out items on DVDs, I set it pretty high at 20, just as a standard that I've seen at other libraries in other states that I've worked at and that I know. Otherwise, sometimes it can get out of control for some people. And since we're not charging for them, I don't want any hoarding situations to happen and have our collection like gone. So that was the only reason I put a limit on the DVDs.
Well, and there's a limit on ukuleles, but okay.
Well, that too. I mean, that's library things. So
I had no idea we could loan out cake pans.
Yeah.
yep,
Oh,
we have
yeah.
cake pans.
It's,
They're in the shapes of animals and stuff. They're really
Oh,
cool.
wow, that's cool.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
not just square or rectangles, Steve.
They're the fun shapes for
artisanal
kids'
stuff.
parties and things like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's an astronaut one I want my wife to make my birthday cake out of.
There you
That'd be
go.
cool.
Maybe she will.
Have you told her?
I have.
Okay.
We were in quarantine again, so you know.
Yeah.
And yes, you can put them on hold. So
Okay.
All right. I think next up is the interlibrary loan policy. I mean, we can go back to anything if you know, if something occurs to somebody. This is kind of a free-form discussion of these 5 policies because
Yeah.
they're all related.
Yeah.
Well, the
The-
first 4 for sure.
yep, the interlibrary loan policy actually did not change.
Okay.
So it was pretty much a carbon copy of the interlibrary loan policy I found in the circulation manual.
Okay.
I just updated the things that don't go out by interlibrary loan to include the library of things.
Okay.
Yeah, because that wouldn't have been in existence, and I bet Margaret didn't even think about updating it because everyone would
Correct.
know that, you know, you're not getting our cake pan. You got to get your own.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Or our ukuleles.
Yeah, that's a
art
good point.
prints.
Yeah. Or the
Yeah, I suppose
telescopes.
those have already been in there. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, so the Library of Things has its own policy,
Mhm.
which is up next. I love the Library of Things in general. I mean, I don't actually use it, but I love the concept.
Yeah, so with this one, again, just a few updates to coincide with what we're doing and the changes that we are looking at.
Mhm.
And so with this one, I didn't put in a dollar amount for when the user wouldn't be able to use the Library of Things. I just put in kind of a blanket statement that they would have to be cards that were suspended must be paid off before checking out from the Library of Things, and then referenced the other policy. Otherwise, this is the same policy that we approved not that long ago. Yes, it's been a year. Nope, 2 years. Just kidding. It's been 2 years now.
Oh, okay.
Where did that time go? Oh,
Well, there's a lost year in there.
I
yeah,
was
there
gonna
is.
say, I think it's, yeah.
One suggestion that came in from a TAC member was that we might want to consider adding in a replacement cost. If not a range, maybe an example of what a replacement cost for a thing could be. It says that we have a list of replacement costs that are provided, but it was a TAC member's suggestion that we might want to include some
Make
kind
it
of
present on
idea.
there.
Mhm.
That is in the collection and equipment policy in the
Oh,
chart.
it is.
Mhm.
Okay.
I got
there we
some
go.
I was
generic-
gonna say, I thought I saw.
Yeah, I got some generic
Replacement. yeah.
replacement costs, and those are the different replacement costs that I found.
So
And
maybe
there-
I just need to refer to that.
Mhm.
Well, it's under specialty items in the Library of Things policy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering, this is Andrew and Amy or Andrea, do we need to buffer those numbers a little bit because, prices keep changing and then you get whopped with a big shipping charge or something like that?
It says minimum.
It says minimum replacement cost.
Minimum,
Okay.
So,
You could have some sort of rider on that header, like, dependent on current market value,
right.
current
Mhm.
replacement market value. And then as far as listing some numbers, I would maybe list what you think might be the most common thing, that like a magazine, is that the most lost item in the world or whatever? And then certainly up to a telescope or a ukulele. And it's like, that's the range as of here and now, and just to give you a ballpark of where you might be. So take care of it.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments about the Library of Things policy? Hearing none, we'll move on to small group study room policy, and this is a policy update.
Correct. And this is an update for the same reason. We did have the threshold in here for when the study room would not be able to be used. So again, just updating that language so that it reflects the current policy information with the new threshold. So not a whole lot to talk about there. But I wanted to get it on this agenda so that we could approve it next month at the
right.
same time.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Yeah, because we did approve this one in January of 19, so it wasn't,
Mhm.
to me, that
Yeah,
doesn't feel
it's-
that long
It's
ago.
been
but-
revised a little on the totals and to revise other policies it's referring to and dependent on, so, okay.
Right.
Does anybody
Andrea?
have any comments or questions?
This is Andrea. The only, so the very last bullet on the first page of the policy, about nothing being taped. I could, being devil's advocate, I could see, here I come along and I'm expecting my group and I gotta go use the bathroom or something. So I'm gonna tape a little note, this is the room, or, I'll be right back. Would that create an issue? Or, do we want to create a little sleeve for somebody to leave a note, or I don't know. That would be my only thought. Any comments, any insights? You probably already thought of this.
I mean, it feels like in that kind of situation, like you could leave a note on the table. Like you wouldn't have to tape it to the
Right.
door, maybe. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm also like, I hate tape. So I don't.
From a maintenance standpoint, tape that doesn't come off of glass when the tape is pulled is a real pain. And we
Yeah.
deal with a lot of tape on windows that we put there on purpose. And then maintenance has to goog on it. And so I think we certainly wouldn't kick out someone who stuck a Post-it note on the window saying that they went to the bathroom and they'd be right back. But I think the intention of this line is really, please don't, hang up, use duct tape to hang something to the walls for your scratch pad or whatever. I don't know that it would be something that we would really call somebody to the carpet on, but I too dislike tape. So I might have a bias there. I will acknowledge my tape bias.
I think that's good because I could also see the possibility. I've been to quite a few conferences where the giant sticky notes have become a thing and people are like brainstorming up on those.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And,
Right, and then they get stuck up on the walls, so.
Or
people can
the
read them
marker
and- yeah,
bleeds through, or the,
Mhm.
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I say, you bring your own arts and crafts and keep them to yourself.
yeah.
And each of those rooms do have a television that, users who are coming in can tie their computer into. So if they are doing something that they want to share as a group, that's an option that they have. Doesn't replace paper, of course, but it is an option.
I'm all set.
Other questions or comments on the small group study room policy? Or any of the policies that we've been discussing? Because I'm ready to move on, but I don't want to rush anyone.
This is Patrick. I'm good. I've enjoyed the conversation.
This is Carol. I'm good to go.
All right. Moving on to public comment. Now, does anybody want to say hi? It doesn't sound like it. That's okay. So we can move on to old business where I don't have anything to bring up. Does anybody have old business they want to discuss? Hearing none, we can move on to new business. It's Andrew's last meeting.
About that.
We'll miss you.
And I did want to address one last long-winded comment. But I just wanted to say that it was in 2014, I believe, on a cold January day that Jen and I walked into the Peter White, and a thought struck me as my wife and I considered moving to Marquette. Soon I was recruited to the library board by Pam Christensen, and I am so grateful for her confidence. And while serving on the board, I've had the opportunity to work with talented board members and library staff on many issues, including a new library director, Andrea, who I'm thrilled with. And we had to deal with dark stores funding our library. We worked on a bond to remodel and restore our library. We had to engage in an innovative measure by voters to override the Headley Amendment, or for the Headley Amendment override to assure the library's future. And we've worked on a number of contracts and budgets. I've had in repairs and creating a fund balance with the help of Rick, and building an endowment with the help of Heather, and then facing the challenges of a pandemic together. And I think that kind of forged confidence in our past decisions and also open ideas for going forward. But I have to say, through it all was the consistent effort of the staff, the director, and my fellow board members to the health and excellence of our library and our community. So on that frigid day when Jen and I first walked into the library, the thought that came to my mind was that if the community has a library of the caliber of the Peter White, that community must really have its act together. So I want to thank everyone for your service and for making my service such a rewarding experience.
Aw, thank you,
There you go.
Andrew. Well,
Yeah,
we
thanks, Andrew.
It's been a pleasure having you on the board, and we appreciate all of your contributions.
Mhm.
And I would have baked a cake. Seriously.
During this pandemic?
Yeah, or actually, in reality, it probably would have been cupcakes. But anyway, and I do believe Andrea and I chatted a little bit. There's going to be a certificate coming your way, and
Thank you.
yeah. So just thank you very much for all you've done, and it's been a roller coaster for sure. It's never a dull moment.
This is Carol. If I could underscore that, Andrew, I've definitely appreciated your participation and reasoned comments. And now I'm going to have to spend more attention on the financial reports because I always thought Andrew will get that. I'm not going to worry about it. So anyway, thank you again.
You're very welcome, Carol. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Patrick. Likewise.
Absolutely. Yep, we'll see you around. I'm probably at the Peter White.
Yeah.
Will.
Good
Hope so.
chance.
Yeah.
Hopefully near that Peter White Punch Bowl in the future.
Let's not talk about that. This is your last meeting. Get out of here. Statute of limitations hasn't run out yet, Andrew, so we don't talk about that for another couple of years.
Well, we hope we can raise a glass to you at some point. So, all right. Anything else?
Set.
Okay.
Right.
Next up is the trustee manual, and
Chapter 3.
how
Policies, look at
appropriate
there.
that chapter 3 is about policies.
Hey. See above, it should say.
Yeah, I feel like, we're in the thick of policies, and so I don't know how much we need to discuss unless anybody has questions or comments about the process that we've been following, or ideas for improvement or anything like that. Okay, hearing none. but don't, and if you don't want to, I mean, we do have to discuss things in open meeting, but I hope you all know that I welcome conversations, emails, texts, whatever form you want to communicate with me in over things like this. If you want to talk privately sometime, I'm happy to do that.
Are you on that TikTok thing that I hear about? Do you do that?
Nope.
Oh, okay. So not that one, but every other channel out there is open.
No, I'm not on
No
Instagram. I'm not on
TikTok.
no TikTok.
Right.
No
This was
Instagram.
one of the best correspondences I've read in maybe ever.
I love that one. I know. And I know Amy. I mean, I don't know her well, but I know her a little bit. And yeah, that was fun.
Coffee
Quite
had
the
to start
humor.
Yeah, well, of course. It is like begging for mercy and forgiveness at the same time. It's like, hey, let me know if this doesn't work. And
Well, and I appreciate your judgment, Andrea, in including this correspondence, right? Because we talked last month about what we should and shouldn't get, and I'm so glad we got this one.
Get some more of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
When this one came to my office, I was like, yes, this one is going in.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you.
Actually, that one should go on Facebook. This is how to apologize to the library.
Yeah, you could redact the last name, just Amy B,
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then we have the director's report.
Yeah. I guess this last month has been kind of a wreck for me.
Yeah, you're almost out of quarantine.
Yes. So I'll be back to work on Thursday, and I couldn't be happier about it.
Good.
We did have a township advisory council training that we did on April 13th, and we had most of the TAC there. I think it was very helpful. We just kind of went through all of the information that comes out at them monthly and quarterly, and how to reach out to township members and that kind of thing. Some exciting things that have happened in this last month is we've started to get the artwork and the galleries kind of back on track. I've had a volunteer in for most of the month of March, and he'll be finishing up on Thursday. and just helping to get some of the artwork cleaned and repositioned. I don't know if any of you have seen the restroom hallway on the first floor, but we went to take all of the pictures off of that and discovered that the pictures had been painted around. So we couldn't just move them. John had to repaint the entire hallway in order to reorganize the pictures down that hallway, but God love him, he did. And it looks a lot better.
Family.
Yes, it had
And
Stevens
he's like, oh, they'll never
fingerprints written all
know.
over it. Ugh.
Yeah.
My husband calls that what is the term that he uses? It'll come to me. But basically doing what you're asked with a little bit of malevolence or just kind of a take that sort of thing. Anyway, so John fixed that for us. It looks a lot better. And working to get the art galleries ready to go for Art Week, hoping that we can have some Art Week contributions starting at the end of June and then running through July. And then we do have artists confirmed starting in August again. So excited about that. And we're pretty much fully staffed now. We've got a new youth services staff member and a new circulation staff member. So we're still short one in our pages, but for the amount of materials that we have coming in and out, we're still good with that. So it's been a long haul.
Yes, indeed.
Questions or comments for Andrea? Well done. Good job
Yes.
hanging in there.
Thank you.
Well, fortunately, none of us really got sick. So,
Good.
that's all you can ask for. Being in quarantine is kind of a pain, but fortunately it was an inconvenience and not because somebody was really sick.
Good.
Chuckled at your comment, working at home is not for the faint of heart.
Oh, hell no.
It's not. I really, I have several friends who have not gone back to work in an office situation. They've been working from home for a year plus. And one of my very good friends who lives out in Phoenix said she's not sure they'll ever bring her department back. They're planning to leave them at home. And for her job, it works okay. She's able to do her work, efficiently from home. But for some of us, our jobs just don't really lend themselves well to that. It's difficult to keep all these things up in the air when you can't have face-to-face communication with people.
Definitely.
And your friend's family probably does a good job of leaving her alone, which that's one of the problems I have around here. Is everyone wants to talk.
I know. Yep.
Yeah, I'm at
Or
work.
there's a dog barking at the door.
Yeah, even the damn, I know.
Mhm.
I think we still have a dog somewhere. I don't know where it's going.
I didn't see the development director's report. I think it might have gotten missed, but
I thought it was in there.
Was it?
Heather
No.
was
Yeah,
out for a surgery, so it may not have made its way in.
okay, that's fine. We'll get it next month. The management reports look good. Statistical reports. I liked Ellen's comment that she got to teach somebody about the history of cataloging. I liked that. I mean, of course I did, right? But
Right, yeah. Yeah, you sure it wasn't you that she was, you two just getting together and show me again. Yeah.
Well, I do want to add on a little bit to John's presentation earlier. He's a very modest guy, but he has done so much in the short time that he's been here.
I can tell.
So he is very modest about what he does, and he's very approachable. Like he was adding a few of those sneeze guards in youth services, and I think he might regret having done that because then all the other departments were like, "Oh, good, you can fix ours too." But he did it just, without any any conflict at all. He's really a gem.
Well, if
Well,
I
that's a
can
nice,
add on,
that's a nice
Andrea,
catch. Yeah.
I mean, when an issue comes up, he is on it that same day. It's just night and day different. And the staff now, after dealing with kind of the opposite for many, many years, is very appreciative of the quick response he gives to their needs. Yeah. So,
Good,
Yeah.
good.
That's great. Yeah.
Very nice to hear.
Nice catch there, folks. You hired the right one.
We've had a lot of really wonderful staff members join us. This pandemic really kind of gutted our staff in a lot of ways. And we lost a lot of people. But fortunately, we were able to also pick up a lot of really quality staff members.
Right.
I just can't say enough positive things about the current status of our staff. We have a really strong group right now, between Amy and Marty. The list goes on, but we just really have a strong staff right now, and I'm very pleased.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard the new podcast, Words with Nerds, I recommend it.
Oh my God, do you not
That's
understand how
right.
this
We
works?
do have a new podcast.
Yeah,
It's fun.
It is fun.
Mhm. And you can find it on Spotify or Apple, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yep.
Wow.
So I see we do have our next meeting is May 18th, and there's a joint meeting with the TAC on June 2nd. Are there any other questions or comments for tonight's meeting?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn.
So I have a second.
Okay, this is Steve.
That was Steve. I will. Andrew, how do you vote?
I'm going to vote no.
Just once, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
Damn it, that's it. Put my foot down.
Carol, how do you vote?
I'm sorry, I had a grandkid conversation. What are we voting on?
Whether to adjourn.
Oh,
You'll like
I
this
will
one.
vote aye.
Okay. Patrick, how do you vote?
Aye.
Steve, how do you vote?
Aye.
This is Ann. I also vote aye. So the motion passes 4-1.
2, 1.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah, thank
You're
you,
welcome.
buddy.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
All
We'll
right.
miss you.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Hi,
everybody.
Andrew.
Brett, I'll
Nice
get
working with
you sign minutes from March 16th tomorrow.
Okay.